Hello everyone, my name is Anuj Jindal. I welcome you to my channel. Today we are going to talk about inflation. We keep reading about inflation in newspapers every now and then, but very few of us understand the reasons behind inflation and comprehensively the steps taken by the government in order to tackle inflation. In today's session, I'm not just going to talk about inflation right now. I will try and compare the reasons behind inflation back in 2011 versus the reasons behind inflation in 2023, and then also compare the steps taken by the governments then versus now. This will give us a very clear picture as to how the governments respond to inflation, how our governments have responded over time, and what have been the major reasons behind inflation then versus now. This video will give you a very clear idea about how to approach the questions of inflation in your UPSC exams as well. So let us begin. The reasons in 2011, this is something that we're going to start with, and then we will move towards reasons for inflation in 2023 and then steps taken by the governments in these two time periods. Number one, reasons in 2011. The first and foremost reason was the fiscal expansion following the global financial crisis as well as the Eurozone crisis. Whenever there is a crisis situation resulting in recession or depression, the governments respond by expanding their fiscal policy. Why do they do it? This is because J.M. Keynes, in his theory, said back in 1930s that the only way of coming out of a recession or a depression is for the government to create demand. And the government can create demand by spending more money, by increasing their expenditures. That is what we call as fiscal expansion. There is a side effect of fiscal expansion, which is higher fiscal deficit. When you have to spend a lot of this money, you will have to borrow as the government, which automatically results in higher fiscal deficit. This is what happened in 2011 as well. We expanded fiscally following the crisis, and we knew that one of the outcomes of this higher fiscal expansion and higher fiscal deficit is going to be higher inflation. But they had no choice, and they had to go down this path in order to create growth and demand in the economy. Higher fiscal deficit automatically results in more money supply in the economy, which means more money in the hands of people, which means higher demand and thus higher inflation. The same has been said here in simple terms. Increase the fiscal deficit by pumping more money into the economy, which creates more jobs, but ultimately results in higher inflation in the economy as well. So this is one of the major reasons behind inflation in 2020, in 2011. Let's now come back to the reasons behind inflation in 2023. The first is food inflation. As you can see here in this chart as well, I have specially mentioned here. If you compare 2012 with 2023, you will see here that from the time period of 2012 to 2021, inflation in food has been in the range of 0 to 5% in the economy. This is CPI inflation. But come 2020, 2022, we see an immediate spike in inflation in food. This has gone down now in 2023, and it is expected to go down further. So what are the major reasons behind this spike in inflation in India, especially food inflation? Number one, cost push due to rising oil prices. After COVID crisis, we saw that the oil prices started going up instantly because the oil companies lost a lot of money during the COVID crisis. They wanted to recover all this money lost. So this rise in oil prices resulted in a rise in cost of everything that is produced in the economy, including agricultural products as well. So this was one of the main reasons behind the increase in inflation in rural India in food, especially rural cereals, rice, eggs and milk. The second major reason is war in Russia and Ukraine, which has disrupted the global logistics. Global logistics includes a lot of things. For example, the wheat imports happening from Ukraine in countries around the world. For example, the insurance cost of products that are being transferred from one place to another. For example, the chips that are being made in China and exported around the world. So the war has disrupted the overall logistics of everything around the world, which also results in a rise in inflation, including food inflation as well. The third one is supply shock due to heat waves. This is a temporary phenomena due to climate change, which we saw in the winters in 2022 and now witnessing the same in 2023 as well with the increasing floods, etc., etc. All this results in a disruption in supply, and a disruption in supply automatically means higher prices of various food grains. We are witnessing the same now vis-a-vis tomatoes as well. And the fourth reason is rising fodder prices resulting in higher milk prices. So fodder is directly connected with milk prices. Because of heat waves, we saw supply shock, which also percolated towards higher fodder prices, which means higher milk prices. So there was a lot of criticism of the government saying that the government is charging a lot of tax on milk, but all of that was fake news. The primary reason was rise in fodder prices, which resulted in a higher milk prices in the country. So this is number one reason of high inflation in India in 2023. What is the second major reason? Withdrawal of free food grain scheme. The government in 2020 after COVID launched a free food grain scheme called as PM Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, which provided free food grains to the poor people. It had to be withdrawn at some or the other moment because the government cannot fiscally manage so much free food grain to the poor people around the country at every point of time. And this was in addition to the free food grain scheme that already exists under National Food Security Act. This had to be withdrawn. When this was withdrawn, automatically this means higher food demand in the market, because all these people who were consuming free food grains now had to go to the market and buy all that. Higher demand automatically means higher inflation in the economy. This also, I believe personally, is it's temporary in nature, and it is going to subside soon as well. The third major reason is related with COVID crisis. High consumption demand happened after the COVID crisis because people had a lot of savings and they wanted to use these savings as soon as the market opened up. Along with this, because of a fall in NPAs in the banking system in the country, the lending and the credit supply of the banks has also increased or skyrocketed, we can say. The reasons behind a fall in NPAs, I have discussed it in another session. You can go and watch it on YouTube. It's available, recently uploaded. But coming back, because of a fall in NPAs, the banks are more strong now, more confident, and they're lending more money. As people have more borrowings to make, they automatically either consume these borrowings, this money, or they invest this money, which ultimately results in higher inflation in the economy. So more demand resulting in higher prices. So these are the two major reasons after the food reason: higher consumption due to after COVID, as well as higher lending by banks because of stronger fundamentals of banks and lower NPAs. So this is a unexpected disadvantage of lower NPAs for the banking sector. What are the other reasons? Now this reason is exactly the same as the reason of 2011, wherein we saw the global financial crisis. We saw the COVID crisis in 2023, which resulted in fiscal expansion by the government. Fiscal expansion means higher fiscal deficit, more money supply in the economy, and ultimately it results in higher inflation in the economy. I don't think I have to explain this again to you guys. Now, let's come to the steps taken by the governments back in 2011 versus what are the steps taken by the government today. In 2011, the government launched MG Narega and free food grain scheme. MG Narega was expanded, not launched. And similarly, free food grain scheme, National Food Security Act, etc., etc. All of these were launched and expanded. What is the primary aim? To create demand in the economy, because we were witnessing lower growth. And the government knew that when you create demand in the economy, automatically inflation will also come up. But they had to go through this process anyhow. Even when inflation rose, they could not withdraw MG Narega or free food grain scheme, because these were the flagship schemes that were focused on survival of the poor in India. The second major step was reducing import duties. This is something that we are witnessing even now. Import duties on various oil imports and various other basic imports have been removed. Why? Because the government has to somehow try and control the prices, and taxes are one major way of doing that. Number three, high interest rates. This is something we do even today. The RBI raises the policy rates Why does it raise policy rates? When you raise policy rates, automatically the borrowings and the lendings go up. I mean, their rates go up. When the rates on borrowings and lendings go up, then people start demanding less of loans. Something that was costing 5% interest rate yesterday, now the interest rate on the same is 10%. I might say that I'll probably consume it tomorrow or later in the year because the interest rate is just too high. So a higher rate on lending and borrowing automatically results in lower demand, which results in less money supply in the economy, ultimately lower inflation. So higher interest rates is one of the monetary policy ways that the RBI follows. It was being followed then and also being followed today. And the fourth major way or step of dealing with inflation is investment in infrastructure projects. Now, this is something that we're witnessing even today. Why does it happen? When you invest in infrastructure projects, you're locking up money in investments, which ultimately results in less supply of money in the economy. Let's say you're making a new port worth 1 lakh crore. A lot of money is being pushed into that, but the port is not functional yet. It's going to take another 5 years to start functioning. For these 5 years, a lot of money is locked up in that infrastructure project. It is not giving us something, and it is also not increasing money supply in the economy. Low money supply means low demand in the economy of money, which means automatically lower inflation in the economy. So locking up money through infrastructure projects, this is an age-old method of reducing or tackling inflation, something that was done in 2011 as well as being done today. What was the problem in 2011 investment in infrastructure projects? Because a lot of these projects got stalled. The government could not handle them. The government got stuck in corruption projects. A lot of these people who had launched these projects vanished. They could not complete these projects. So implementation was a major problem, which ultimately result in the government being pushed out by the people because the government could not rise up to its promises. They could not implement the projects that it announced. So this is one of the major steps being taken by the government in 2011. And now let's see at the steps being taken by the government today to control inflation. Number one, reducing excise on petroleum products, the same as reducing import duties, exactly the same that was being done in 2011 to reduce the rates, taxes in order to cushion the poor people so that they can keep consuming these basic services at the same rate and they do not have to shell out more money. Number two, higher interest rates by RBI, exactly the same as that was done in 2011, being done every time there is inflation in the economy. The RBI increases policy rates under monetary policy framework, which results in lower demand of money in the economy, which ultimately results in lower inflation. Third one, investment in infrastructure projects. The government today is also investing heavily in infrastructure projects. The ultimate aim is what? To make sure that money is locked up in these projects for a gestation period of 5 to 10 years so that inflation subsides. And when these infrastructure projects get completed, the higher productivity of these projects will result in higher growth. So it's a good situation. The only caveat here is that you have to implement these projects well. If the government is able to implement these projects well, automatically the government will stay in power or the government will be able to contribute towards growth in the system. So these were the major steps being taken in 2023 versus 2011, as well as the reasons behind the crisis in 2011 versus 2023. I hope it was clear. I hope now you have a better, clearer and more simpler understanding of inflation in our economy, why does it arise and how the governments respond. If you have any doubts, you can put them in the comment section below. I will try and answer them as soon as possible. I will see you once again. If you like such videos on economy and finance, you can subscribe to my channel as well. I'll see you very soon with more such videos. Till then, take care. Bye bye. Jai Hind.